if I could just introduce you to Nicola. Nicola Galvin works in our Youth Reach Centre in Trim. She's a resource person there. Nicola has been very involved over the past number of years with us in developing, I suppose, the whole sort of quality we have around FETAC in County Meath EC. Nicola would also work as with centres in doing self-evaluation of centres. So she actually knows the FETAC system across the county very well. She's been doing that with us for the past 2 years. And Nicola will just give you, if you like, a very sort of general overview of FETAC and
Christy stolen nearly all my best lines this morning, so I'm very interested in reading to be honest. Just before I start to go into what FETAC is, I'd just like to reiterate what Christy has said about days like today and the importance of days like today. I know people might be initially a little bit shy about going up to somebody and saying my name is whatever and hello, and you have, that's why we have name tags. I don't like wearing name tags. It can be very important to kind of go up and say, I'm new, what do you teach? And it's so valuable to sort of get to speak to somebody for 5 minutes even about what subject they teach, or you might even have known what centre they're in or whatever, because then you're not afraid to pick up the phone and say, I met you in the outline, or do you know what I mean? So I think it's important just to sort of overcome a little bit of shyness you might have today, because you'll find the networking at all of these sorts of mornings very valuable. And Christy used a word like I don't know. Don't ever be afraid to say I don't know how to do something. Use your coordinator. Some of the feedback coordinators are here today. You'll find program coordinators are often different to FETAC coordinators. Do you know what I mean? Like if it's program coordinator can be the person in charge of your overall service or the CTI or adult ed, but there may be a different person in that centre who's your FETAC coordinator. And they're the person you need to go to and say, with your module descriptor, and say, look, I'm really struggling with this. I don't really know how to deliver this. And that person, maybe like Esther or Brian, might be able to say, do you know something? I know somebody who's very good and teach that in Help. Maybe would you link in with that person and go and meet her coffee and sit down for half an hour, and you'll come away a lot more confident about what you're delivering and about your subject area, because you can be very new to subject areas. You were sort of recruited on your strengths as a tutor, I suppose, but not necessarily as your strength in tutoring that particular subject. So the subject could be very new to you. So don't be afraid to kind of network with people and say hello to people today, and even get their phone numbers or find out what centre they're teaching, and go to your coordinator and say, do you mind if I go, and go and meet up with that person, have a look at their resources and what kind of things they do. And it can be beneficial to both of you. Do you know what I mean? Even if the person's experienced, they can be very happy with the work, you're showing them as well. So, go back to the words dynamic and innovative that were in the mission statement. I suppose the great thing about FETAC is that it affords you the time to be dynamic and to be innovative in your teaching. And I suppose, try and put yourself, as Christy said, in the place of the student, the place of the learner, and you'll find you'll teach a totally different class. I think sitting down as a student is very different to standing at the top of the class and teaching something. You'll soon realise that I could be very boring in 5 minutes' time, and you can switch off. So, and you're a person who's well educated and well adjusted, and you're sort of social etiquette about sitting and being polite and listening to something. Imagine you are a 22-year-old learner who is out of school maybe 7 years, and imagine then trying to listen to somebody and just listening to words all the time and not having resources around or not being creative in the classroom. Very easy to switch off. So I think if anything, maybe Hub today will sort of maybe kind of strike a chord with you about how to be creative and have a chat with you about that as well. FETAC is the Further Education and Training Awards Council. I suppose it's an umbrella organisation. Really think about it as being sort of almost like County Meath EC at the top. And underneath it would come the likes of NCBA, Chagas, Gordy, Siwara. They would have all developed their own modules, if you like. You'll notice that the module that you teach probably still has NCBA written at the front of it. And people say, why is that? It's not FETAC. FETAC is only the awarding body. Okay, they're only the person who basically, one of their roles would be to hand out the award at the end of the year. Really, that's what it is. You don't see the FETAC, you don't see certificates for learners that say it's an LTBA certificate. They're all FETAC certificates. But really what the role, I suppose, of FETAC is to monitor throughout the year. People who deliver FETAC courses, like County Meath EC, they can't just decide tomorrow, I think I'll go and deliver FETAC. Or, previously in the past, they couldn't just say, I think I'll go and deliver, we'll go and put 50 places up for FETAC childcare and we'll get people in, and that's fine, we'll start teaching. we must seek approval, if you like, from FETAC. And that's called quality assurance and validation. And when the girls are going to talk about that a little bit later on. So it's about kind of seeking permission, if you like, and FETAC will come and say, well, show me what course you intend on delivering. Show me how you're going to deliver it. Show me the tutors kind of packs, and show me the information the tutors are going to pass on. They can't just decide to sort of deliver a course here in the morning. They must seek validation, so that's one of the roles of FETAC as well. I know the slides are probably a little bit mixed up. So what I'll do is I'll move on, I suppose, really to kind of what FETAC is. Some of these delivering even FETAC level 2 here. No. They're all sort of maybe FETAC level 3, FETAC level 4, possibly FETAC level 5 if you're 6 smart people. Now, I don't know if that's very clear here, I suppose. But for those of you who are not familiar with FETAC levels, this is called the NFQ. Oh, is there? Great. Yeah. Right, this is called the NFQ, and this was developed a couple of years ago. And the reason it was developed, I suppose, was because FETAC wasn't very well known, I suppose, up until a couple of years ago. And even if people had heard about FETAC, they may not have seen it as a valued or a valuable discipline. They may have sort of associated it in the past with something like fitting guild courses, or, you know, when people go to night classes, there was no certification at all, actually. I suppose FETAC has now become even more important in the last sort of couple of years, I suppose, really, from 2 points of view. From an employer's point of view, I suppose, where somebody has a FETAC certificate written on their CV, an employer then kind of knows really, okay, that person has a FETAC level 4, so that's the equivalent of a leaving cert. So I kind of have an idea now. In the past, where you had things like City and Guilds level 2 or NCPA level 3 or whatever, employers didn't really know because there was no standard set. Okay, so they were a little bit unclear. You know, people could write, I'm very good at computers on my CV. What does very good at computers mean? Do you know what I mean? Whereas now a person can say, I have a FETAC level 3 in computer literacy, or I have ECDL, which is the equivalent of FETAC level 4. So I suppose it's setting standards, it's making everything clear for everybody. And I suppose from a learner's point of view, FETAC is even more important as well. As I said, there's a huge demand for certification now. And it's no coincidence that there are probably more FETAC learners in HEC than there are junior cert and leaving cert students. Or, you know, you have more people sort of looking for FETAC certification because they're hearing about it in the news. They're seeing it written at the bottom of an ad, you know, saying this course is FETAC approved. So they're seeing that it's valuable. You know, I even saw a van a couple of weeks ago with an electrician's name, and he actually has FETAC level 4 or FETAC approved. Like, and it was the first time I've really seen that sort of thing. So I think people are starting to kind of become more and more familiar with FETAC. But learners are demanding certification. They don't just want to do night classes anymore. They don't just want to go in and do sort of a course maybe in maths anymore as such. Now some of them do, but I think they really kind of go, what certification am I going to get from this? I really need a piece of paper for this to show that I've learned, and I've learned to a certain standard. Okay, so it's not just going in and doing a computer class for 5 weeks anymore. You're going in, you're doing a computer class, you're meeting standards, and you're getting an award. And that's why FETAC, I suppose, is becoming more popular with people. You see on the NFQ there, this was developed because nobody really knew where FETAC stood. They kind of knew a junior cert, a leaving cert. You go to college and you do a 3-year degree or a 4-year degree. You might go and do a postgrad, you might go and do a master's, and you might go and do a doctorate. So they had a fairly good idea of that side of things. That's more the mainstream learning. They needed to develop something which showed where FETAC kind of was placed and all of that really. So you'll see that they've come up with sort of a framework here where you can see that somebody comes in to do a FETAC level 1 and a FETAC level 2, which if anybody who wants to know a little bit more about that really should probably speak to Bernie about that, because as a literacy kind of covers a lot of level 1 and 2. But I suppose if you look in more probably primary cert, Bernie would be in that, or maybe the equivalent of kind of primary, you know what I mean, as in 5th, 6th class, back, you know.
Level 1 would be very beginning.
Yeah. Yeah, no, so you're talking about people going right back, and don't even like to use the word basic, so they are going right back to the beginning of learning, okay? So that would be level 1 and 2, and that's quite new really, that's only come up in the last 2 or 3 years, and I know Kenton Levy and Bernie and her staff were, I think, one of the first VCs in the country to actually put forward learners for level 1 and 2. In the past, people would have come into adult literacy and they would have improved their literacy, but there was no real certification for them. Whereas now they can go right back and they can see an art like this and they can say, God, if I enter into need BBC, somebody will sit down and look at the learning plan. And I can start at level 1 or 2 or whatever maybe would suit them, and I can move up to level 3. And maybe I can move to another service around the county and I can move on to level 4. And they can clearly see a path here. So that's the great thing about this NFQ, I suppose, that people can see where they're at in the first place and where they can progress. So transfer and progression is huge here. So level 3 is the equivalent of junior cert. Really level 3 would be like, I suppose, somewhere between foundation junior cert and an ordinary level junior cert. Now I know when I do my junior cert it would be an ordinary level or higher level, but you know a few years ago they introduced the foundation level. So really that's I suppose where a level 3 would stand. Okay, it's somebody who still needs assistance in their learning, still guided learning, okay? Then we moved on to level 4. I think they kind of didn't really know where to place 4 and 5 exactly because it didn't quite fit in. Level 4 wasn't strictly just a leaving cert. So really I suppose if you look at a lot of youth reach centres around the county, or even sort of BTI and BTOS, they would deliver a lot of level 4. Level 4 is like, I suppose, an ordinary level junior cert, or leaving cert, sorry, okay? So that's a level 4 certificate when somebody comes in. And they're sort of likening it to a level 5, but really to me a level 5 is what most people would want to do a PLC course, like a post-leaving cert course. So if you look at any PLCs around the country, it would be level 5 that they would be offering. So really level 5 is sort of, I suppose, like your first year in college, if you like. Okay, so that's the standard. You should be well able to learn on your own. You should be very familiar with projects and assignments and work on your own, off your own bat with guidance, I suppose, really, you know. So level 4 would be, level 4 and 3 are really the kind of most prominent ones around the county, I suppose, generally, would have most of the learners. But anybody, people here for the SMART, the 6 March, yeah, so you'd be level 5 then, so you're sort of up there on first year college level. So I suppose people who are coming in with a level 3, or to do a level 3, wouldn't have a junior certificate. Or if they did have a junior certificate, they might have gotten the junior certificate 50 years ago. Or the group cert, or whatever it might have been called at the time, cert. So really, they would probably need to go back to a level 3, really. Do you know what I mean? Because it's unfair and unjust to put them onto a level 4 where they're not fit for learning. The great thing about FETAC is you can't fail FETAC. It's impossible to fail FETAC. And if the learner goes for it, if they choose to put the shoulder forward for an examiner to look at, really they need to be 100% sure that they are entirely happy with the learning that's taking place there, and that that person will not fail that subject. So the examiner will come along and they won't say that person's not fit, send it back. That's the reason they go back to FETAC in the first place, or they come to PhD. It's the reason why they're not in mainstream. It's the reason why they're not in NUI MOOC or in UCD. They need kind of assisted learning. And that's the great thing about FETAC, I suppose. You know, as tutors, they do place great trust in you. You know, Christy was mentioning the relationship there. That's the all-important key, really. You know, when you're delivering much, that they trust what you're delivering to them, you know. Are there any questions on the framework before we move on? Have people seen that before? Yeah, so you're kind of familiar with that. Major awards. Okay, major awards and minor awards, I suppose. Are some people here just going in to deliver one module in their, in the course they're delivering? They're just there to teach childcare, or they're just there to teach, French or maths or whatever. There are kind of different types of learners, I suppose, who come back to teach or to learn FETAC. There are people who come back just to a minor award. A minor award is standalone. Okay, so they're just coming back to do childcare level 5. No other course. That's all they want to do. They have a particular interest in it. Or maybe they're working in childcare at the minute and their employer says, you don't actually have any certifications. I know you've been here 10 years, but you don't have any piece of paper that says you've taken a course, you've met the standard, and you've passed the course. So really they might say, when you go back and do a source to, a FETAC course, go back and do FETAC level 4 in childcare. So that's called a minor award. In other words, it's a component certificate. It's just one. It'll come out at the end of the year with a certificate with just Mary O'Brien and FETAC level 4 childcare. So that's a standalone course, okay? Major award then is where a person comes back and they say, I'd like to do a complete level 3 certificate, or I'd like to do a complete level 4 certificate. So that obviously involves a lot more work and a lot more commitment. But I think it's important that that you make yourself aware what course your learners are on. Do you know what I mean? And don't just go in and teach in isolation. And find out, God, are you doing a full award? Or, you know, even just say to them, are you doing other subjects here with BTI, or are you just doing this one? And there are a number of reasons for that. But really, I suppose, is to develop a relationship with the learner. But also you can kind of, when you're in a class, you're able to say, do you know the way you did that in you know, food nutrition? You're learning food nutrition with some other tutor. But this is kind of, this applies to childcare or whatever it is. You're able to sort of let them see a bigger picture about their learning, I suppose. So, you know, never sort of teach in isolation. Always be aware of what your learners are doing as well in other courses. And that way you can link in with your tutors and say, I find that this guy is finding the, you know, just reading pages very tough. Do you find that in your class as well? So that's, you know, another way of networking. There's always the best interest in learners, always. So major awards where they're coming in, they're going to do a full 8 module. Or they're going to get a full 8 credits, I suppose, really. Credits, I suppose, is something you could, like, you know, you'll sort of discuss, I suppose, with your coordinator. But basically, when you do one module, you get 1 credit. So if you do childcare, you're going to get a credit. If you do maths, you're going to get a credit. If you do IT, you're going to get one. And 8 will lead you to a full award. Okay? So 8 will lead you to a full level 3, 8 will lead you to a full level 4, and 8 will lead you to a full level 5. But no level 3 certificate is probably going to be the same kind of thing. What we deliver in these training, our 8, will be very different to what thousands of teach deliver. Okay? So that's why, I suppose, you try and really should, when BC are recruiting, they kind of have a look at what 8 subjects will best suit this group of learners who've applied for this course. None of them seem to be into home ec or cooking or anything like that. What's the point of putting food nutrition on your course? This group over here, they're really interested in that. Why not make that one of their 8? And so that's the great thing about FETAC is that, and going back to the mission statement, is about being innovative and dynamic. What will suit this group this year will not suit the next group coming in next year. Do you know what I mean? So you have to be creative and dynamic about that. So just make yourself aware, I suppose, of what awards your learners are going towards, because I think it's important in the overall scheme of things. Now, recognition of prior learning is something just to be aware of. It's not something you're probably going to come into contact with really, or you know, you're going to be too concerned about. But recognition of prior learning is very important for adults. Because when you have an adult coming in, and that person has worked in construction for 15 years, and they've absolutely no piece of paper to say, I've worked in construction. Really all they have, I suppose, not all they have, but what they would have maybe is letters from an employer saying it's worked for 15 years for me. Really, do you have any other evidence of it? Okay? So recognition of prior learning is where somebody sits in front of you and says, I've worked as a hairdresser for 15 years. I have no, apart from the courses they may have sent me on for colouring and things like that, but I really don't have any certification to show I'm a fully qualified hairdresser. And I am a fully qualified hairdresser. So how can I relate that to FETAC? Okay? So I suppose as a provider then, or your coordinator then, will make an application to FETAC and they'll say, Vincent has been working as a carpenter for 15 years. How will I get his work and life experience recognised into woodcraft level 3 or woodcraft level 4? Okay, because that's the sort of the, you know, there's always